I remember when I was a new real estate investor, I struggled to find motivated sellers. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can find motivated sellers using Propstreams. People who are actually willing to sell, not just people who are just kind of like tire kickers, we call them. Anyways, if you're new to the channel, my name's Justin, you're wrong, and I've helped hundreds of people make money in real estate. So before I begin, just understand that there's a lot of different ways to find motivated sellers, and there's two main ways in particular. Those two main ways, you can either take a sniper approach or the shotgun approach. Now let me explain the difference between both. So with a sniper approach, you can be targeting very specific niche list because you want like a smaller list because you might not have a big marketing budget for yourself, because all this data, it costs money to pull the data. And if you don't have a lot of money, then it might be best to start with these kind of sniper lists, with a very niche list, a small list. The shotgun approach, however, is like you're just aiming for everyone. You're literally calling every single homeowner out there. You're targeting everyone, and you're just trying to get a deal with everyone. Now, the reason why you do a shotgun approach is really because you have a bigger budget and you run out of calling the same people. So for example, if I am going to do the sniper approach, but I have like the approach list is like 1,000 people, like they're gonna call them and they will spam them like crazy. So if you have a lot of like a big team essentially, and as you're growing, you probably will transition over to the shotgun approach because you have so many more people to call. You have hundreds of thousands of people to call depending on your market. And so that you might call them once a month. It's not gonna be like you're gonna call them once every 3 days. Like you're gonna annoy people like crazy, and you're probably gonna end up in a lawsuit if you're spamming that sniper list. So those are the two different approaches you can make. Now, I'm going to show you the screen on Propstream. Now, this is how I find certain lists on Propstream for motivated sellers. Now, I'm just going to show you a couple lists that have worked well for me, and I'm just gonna kind of wing it. So I'm gonna show you a few lists that have helped me. So first of all, you wanna type in your city. So for me, my market is Fresno, California. I'm going to type that, click it here. Now, as you can see, when I type in Fresno, California, look at all this stuff that pops up. We have, what is it, 166,000 properties pop up. Now, if you wanted, you could literally call all these people, but I typically don't do that. Now, even with the shotgun approach, there is some method to the madness. Now, here's the typical filters that I use first. Now, one of the most common filters that people use, and it still works today, so there's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel. Like, this still works. So I'll go to filter, and I'll filter these search results. Keep in mind the number we had, 166,000 properties. So I'll filter this. Now, one of the things that I do is I look at the equity first. Now, one of the most common things I look at is this. So I go to the valuation and equity info, and I can change the estimated equity percentage to at least 50%. Now, a shortcut of doing that, you can also go to quick list choices and you can go to high equity. It also makes it 50% equity or more. Now look at what it did to this list. It changed it from 166,000 to 118,000. Now that's still a lot of people out there, but this is just a simple high equity list. Now just straight high equity, this is one of the lists that you would use if you're taking the shotgun approach. We have a big team who can call this many people all the time, and you have a team essentially to work with. Now, so a lot of people ask, like, why would you even target high equity? Now, the reason you would target high equity people is this. I'll explain it with an example. So if you do not know what equity means, it essentially means how much percentage of a property does a person actually own. So let's say a property owner has a home worth $100,000 and they own 10% of it. So they own 10%, they have $10,000 in equity, meaning they own 10%, but their other 90% has been financed by a bank. Like they have a mortgage of $90,000 and they own $10,000 of the $100,000. So that's the equity, $10,000. Now, imagine this scenario with this exact home. Imagine I go to them, and for us flippers, like we often had to get really deep discounts. So for them, their home at $100,000 market value, to make money on this home, I'll probably have to buy it at like $50,000 or somewhere around there. And so for me, imagine if I go to the owner and I'm like, hey, like, can I buy your home for $50,000? It's worth 100. And that's really what we do. And we do that because people are in distress and they need to sell their home fast. But anyways, if I were to actually give $50,000 to them for their home, here's what would happen. They owe $90,000 on their mortgage. They only own 10% of the home. So if I were to give them $50,000 for the home, they use $50,000 to pay off $50,000 of the $90,000 mortgage. They still have to pay off $40,000 of the mortgage themselves. So their equity of 10 plus minus 40, like they'd have to pay out $30,000 just for me to buy their home at $50,000. So like, by me buying their home, they'd take a massive loss, and they'd have to pay us money, or not pay us, pay the lender money literally for me to buy their house. Now that's why we target high equity, because we want people to have a lot of equity in their home so that they have room to negotiate and they can feel good about accepting our low offers essentially. So here's another scenario. Imagine if they had 50% equity, and in that case maybe I offered $60,000 for a $100,000 home. Now for them, if that was the case, they only owe $50,000 left, they own $50,000 of the home, they use my $60,000 to pay off the mortgage, and they profit $10,000, you know, plus, well, I'll probably pay for closing costs, but they profit $10,000. Now it's a much better scenario given they have equity versus if they don't have equity. Now, I hope that made sense, but that's really why we target equity, and I felt like I had to explain it because I really didn't get why we had to target equity people for a while when I was just starting. So, okay, back to Propstream. So that's one of the filters you can use. Another thing that a lot of people do is that we change high equity to vacant. So occupancy status, we keep the high equity. As far as the occupancy status, you can change this to vacant. So now what we're looking at a high equity vacant list. So, and look how much that dropped. It went from like 118,000 to only 1,600 properties. So what you're looking at now, these 1,600 properties in Fresno, these are all the properties with homes of people that have at least 50% equity. So they own at least 50% of the home, and they don't actually live there. Like no one lives in the home. So it's vacant for a couple of reasons. It's vacant because, you know, they don't live there at all, or they have a tenant in there and it's vacant. So, you know, essentially by this, whether it's owner occupied or not. Like owner occupied means the homeowner like has the mailing address attached to the home. Non-owner occupied essentially means that it's supposed to be a tenant there and their mailing address of the owner is somewhere else. So yeah, we're looking at a list of landlords because I selected not owner occupied. So these are tenant occupied and they're vacant. So the tenant is occupying it, but they're not actually there. So this is what this list pulls right here. Now this is one of those very shotgun niche lists that you can use to target motivated sellers. Now keep in mind, no matter what, no matter how niche your list is, you're gonna have to go through a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts, or a lot of people, property owners, before you actually find a deal. So it still takes work, but if you get the niche list, like you can essentially layer all these filters to get more targeted lists where there's more potential for motivation. Like that's really all it is. It's like, this isn't a list of 1,300 motivated sellers, it's a list of 1,300 possibly motivated sellers. So no matter how niche you go, like that's what you're gonna see. Another list that I like to do, let me clear this or reset. Another list I like to do is, again, I like to start with just high equity. And then another thing, so this is kind of smart actually, I don't know who I heard this from, but let me go essentially to property characteristics. So if I go to property characteristics, I can search for at least a 2-story home, person with high equity in the home. I want to make sure they're owner occupied, someone's living there, and I want to give me the best chance to get an old person. So here's how you can filter for that on Propstream. On ownership info right here, I can click it, and then I can go to years of ownership. Now, of course, this doesn't mean I'm gonna get an old person in the house, but if someone has owned the home for 25 years, they're probably an old person, like most likely. So what we are targeting here, we're trying to target someone old, living in a 2-story home and has equity in their home. Now, it might be obvious, but the reason why we're targeting that is, you know, if it's a 2-story home, someone who's very old will get tired of that home very fast as they get older and older. So this, yeah, look at this list. This list has 651 people. So again, these aren't exactly like guaranteed old people, but they're probably older if they've owned a home for 25 years. Like if you're watching this, you probably haven't owned a home for 25 years, right? So that's who we're targeting. And again, these aren't like guaranteed motivated people, but there's a chance. There's a chance they're willing to sell because you're trying to identify something that would cause them distress, and something that would cause an old person distress in a 2-story home is the struggle or the hardship that it takes to take care of a 2-story home or just get around the house as you get older. Now, another filter you can use, I'm gonna reset this. Let me see. Oh, another filter you can use is just liens. So if you don't know what a lien is, it's essentially like there's something negative against the property that is essentially hurting the value. So the owner owes someone something, and someone else has put what's called a lien on the property, saying that, hey, like you owe me something, like telling the sellers you owe me something. So what you can do is tax liens work really well, especially if you know when your county's tax sale date is. So in my county example, I click tax lien. What this is saying is that these are all the people who are behind on their property taxes. Now, with property taxes, I don't know every single county out there, but for my city in Fresno, California, if I essentially, there's a certain month of the year that if you have not paid your property taxes for 5 years, the tax collector will take the home from that person. Now, if you are aware of that and you know those people who are like way behind those taxes, and you know like this is the month that they're going to take the home from them, if you come into their life like a little bit sooner and you're like, hey, like I can buy your home, and maybe don't say this directly, but like in your head you're like, I know you're about to lose this home. If you don't do something, I can buy it. They're a lot more likely to sell it to you. So you're just trying to solve a problem. That's all you're trying to do. So you can search by tax lien, and also it does help that they do have equity. So you can do high equity tax liens, and let's see what pops up. Yeah, 2,600 properties. It's not bad. So these are more the sniper approaches where you're trying to identify pain points of the homeowners. And again, none of it's guaranteed, but you know, this stuff works. And again, if you want like the most niche list, just layer all these different filters I talked about. So I just shared a couple with you, but imagine if I layered all of them. Like, so for example, we're gonna do high equity, we're gonna do vacant, we're gonna do tenant vacant, so the non-occupied owner-occupant loans. We're gonna go, maybe we'll go old people too. Old people and the property characteristics, at least a 2-story. Let's see, I don't know. Let's see what happens. At least a 2-story home. Let's see if the owner has owned the home for at least 25 years. I don't know how many, yeah, there's no results on that. I was just trying to test that. But let's say if you just kind of got rid of a couple things, like maybe just let me get rid of the number of stories and the old people. Let's just look high equity, vacant, and tax lien. What does that pop up? So we have 18 properties. Like, that's a very niche list. And if you can just skip trace these people to find their phone numbers, call them, or just knock on the door, you probably can get a deal. So this is how you find properties. Is like, if you want to go more niche, more sniper, you just gotta layer different things on these searches. But otherwise, those are just a few searches that have helped me. And again, this is something that has just helped me. I'm not claiming to be an expert at Propstream. I just know this stuff works. And if you call enough people and you do enough volume of calls or text or however you're trying to reach out to these people, and you follow up, you're gonna get a deal. So I hope this video was helpful, and if it was and you just want help to grow your real estate investing business, I want you to click on the link in the description for a free strategy session. But otherwise, peace.